Welcome to the Bookish Hour with your hosts, Sarah E. Burr and J.C. Kenney. We'll be starting soon. And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bookish Hour. I am Sarah Burr.
And I am J.C. Kenney. And I tell you what, Sarah, here in the United States, we're heading into a 3-day holiday weekend. It's Thursday night. We have a fabulous guest with us tonight. So I think it's time to get bookish.
It is time to get bookish. You guys, thank you so much for joining us live. For our viewers who are able to, we have a fabulous show for you this evening. We are talking to the delightful M.A. Monnin. She is joining us to celebrate the release of her new book, Death on the Grand Canal.
Yes.
Mary, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to our bookish viewers for those who haven't met you before during our anniversary episode?
Oh, that's true. Well, first, thank you for having me, Sarah and JC. I'm Mary Monnin. I write under M.A. Monnin. I write mysteries with a touch of romance. I live in Kansas City with my husband and 2 Siberian Huskies that rule the house. And I love to travel, and I think that really comes across in my writing.
Yes.
I highly agree. And so for those of you who have joined us for our earlier episodes, we have traveled to Venice before. One of our authors who visited, Rob Sanborn, he had a book set in Venice. And I have to tell you, Mary, I love this city, the way that you write about it. And in Death on the Grand Canal, it is just so hypnotic and mesmerizing. And the romance of the city is so present. And so I would just love to know if you could tease a little bit about what is happening. This is the second book in your Intrepid Traveler Mysteries, correct?
Yes.
All right. So I would love it if you could tease for our audience members what to expect with Stefanie's latest mystery outing, and how did you decide on Venice as your setting?
Well, okay, so in Death in the Grand Canal, Stefanie finds herself in Venice, Milan in Venice, on the Black Market Trail of a fabulous Renaissance sapphire and emerald pendant called the Borgia Peacock. And a few years ago, my husband, I wanted to place it in Venice because a few years ago, my husband and I finally went, and I was just so totally charmed by the ancientness. I lived in Europe most of my life, or for over 20 years. And so I was used to old buildings and castles and that sort of thing. But when we went to Venice, I was not prepared by the ancientness, the Gothicness of the city. And I was just totally charmed. I loved it. I knew I would have to set some sort of murder there, some sort of adventure.
How did you pick mystery to write about? Because this is your second novel. The first is set in the Aegean, which another stunning locale. How did you discover your love of writing mysteries?
Well, I've always liked mysteries. As an adult, that's mostly what I read, mysteries and histories. I didn't read a whole lot outside of the genre. I love the puzzle of it. I love to play with the audience as a writer. I love to play with the reader. I feel like we have a game going on. I'm going to toss out a clue and a red herring and let's see what you catch. So it kind of feels like a game I'm playing. I just enjoy the puzzle. And I also, I really like the fact that justice wins in the end. As a reader and as a writer, that's very important to me. It's very satisfying.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of the things as a reader of your books, and I have to preface, I'm only about a third of the way through this one. Okay. So, you folks, you don't have to worry about getting any spoiler alerts for me because I'm not there yet. But one of the things that I think is really cool as a fan of your books is that, as the title of the series, Intrepid Traveler, hints at, that it's a different location with each of your books, as opposed to like my stories or Sarah's, where, we establish a community or one thing and like with Murder, She Wrote, all of a sudden these become little teeny tiny, murder capitals of the world. You take us to different places in your stories. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose that route?
Well, as I said earlier, I love to travel, and I've been to a lot of different countries. And I honestly think I'm happiest when I'm traveling and exploring a new place, a new country, a new culture, and, different people. And I really wanted to share that excitement of foreign travel with readers. I feel that's something that's very authentic to me, and that I would just love to share that bit of excitement. And for me, it adds a bit of excitement, and it also gives me an excuse to travel other places.
Research.
Places I haven't been to yet.
I think that excitement definitely comes through. And also we have a lot of excited viewers who are chiming in saying hello for the evening. Farmhouse Reader, Mark, we've got David and DHB all joining. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. So JC had mentioned, the traveler part of your series. I want to talk a little bit about the Intrepid part and talk about Stefanie. Who is Stefanie, for folks who may not be familiar with her, and why would you label her as an intrepid traveler to begin with?
Well, Stefanie was, for 12 years, she was a very dedicated private banker that devoted every waking hour to wining and dining clients, talking them into investing their money in the bank as opposed to anywhere else. And she, after being promised the position of vice president for 3 years, only to see it go to the bank owner's nephew, she decided she's had enough. She's just tossing that out. She's going out, she's traveling, she's doing things that she hasn't done because she's been a workaholic. And so she's never really traveled before. When she went to Greece, that was her first outing, except for a short summer internship at an archaeological dig on Crete. And she's gone by herself. So she's been kind of brave to get out there and do it. And after her time in Crete, in Greece, she discovered that she has a knack for investigation. And so she's moving on to Italy, hoping to get her hands on the fabulous Borgia peacock, which has not been seen since it was stolen from the 1906 Milan World Expo. Is that real?
Is that a real jewel? Because that was one thing that I was like, is this real? Because it felt so
not
real.
It's fictional, but I looked up different Renaissance era pendants. It was okay. So it was supposed to be commissioned. The fictional story is that it was commissioned by Rodrigo Borgia, who was later Pope Alexander VI, for one of his mistresses. And so that's the backstory of the piece. So that's in about 1490s, 1495, 98, that time frame. So I did lots of research looking for types of jewelry that were worn at that time. And I did come across, what really caught my eye was these just fabulous mythical creatures made out of Baroque pearls and, studded with, emeralds and rubies and sapphires. And so I designed my own.
That, like, the fact that you were able to create something, I mean, I had to look up. I was like, is this this sounds like such a cool piece. And the fact that there was this history woven into the story, I was like, this is so brilliant. And I was wondering, it sounds like you did a lot of research for this, but what was the process of kind of crafting this entire providence for this
well,
jewel?
I'll tell you what I started when I started this series with Death in the Aegean. I wanted to get an idea of stolen artwork, stolen artifacts. So I looked up Interpol, and Interpol has a cultural heritage division, and they put out, I think it's quarterly, Interpol's most wanted works of art. And they show
wow.
on there, they feature on there famous stolen works of art. And now they've gone to a database, but I do think they still have the poster. And they just show a photo of the item, and they tell where it was stolen, when it was, what it's made of, when it was made. And there's all kinds of things on there. There was even a comic book. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been DC #1. I'm not sure. I knew at the time because my brother is a comic book collector. But they have tiaras. They have artifacts from ancient Egypt and Roman things. They have a wide variety of items on there. And I wanted, when I came up with the Borgia Peacock, I wanted something that would be similar to what was on those posters.
Oh, wow.
Well,
That's
yeah,
cool.
I'm with Sarah, because it sounded like, okay, it's a real thing. And, with this fire, the way you talked about in 1906, how everything burned down, but this one,
Now that is real.
Oh,
That
really?
is real.
Okay.
The Decorative Arts Pavilion did burn down. And it was at the Milan International Expo. It did burn down. So you will read about that.
Okay.
You can look that up.
Okay. Well, Sarah and I have so many questions that we could keep you here all night, Mary. But one of the things that I'm curious about is you've told us a little bit about Stefanie, but and I don't want to give away too much for folks who haven't read the first book, Death in the Aegean. But in that book, she really is, her thing is, her avocation is archaeology.
Yes.
Or at least that's kind of the sense I got. Now,
Yes.
In this book, it's a little bit of a shift, not so much archaeology, but still historical things. So can you talk a little bit about, how Stefanie got this love and really this kind of expertise in all things historical?
Oh, okay. Well, now this goes back to book 1, Death in the Aegean. She's not so much an avocational archaeologist as she interned there once with a family friend. She interned at an archaeological dig on Crete with a family friend years before, like 14 years before. But her father had started out as an archaeologist, and he had found a cylinder seal. Now, those are really cool. They're usually made some kind of hard material, and they're intricately carved, so that when you roll them out on clay, they either say something or they show a scene. So anyway, he was falsely accused of stealing that, and it played a huge part in his life. And the way it affected him impacted her. So she kind of has a bit of a chip on her shoulder about stolen artifacts that belong in museums and should not be in collectors' hands. And so that's her driving interest. But she's also kind of burned her bridges in banking, and she's a bit lost. She's looking for where she belongs now.
Okay.
And I think that's a really nice segue into the appearance of Thomas. And as you can probably see from the smile on my face, I was like, I love Thomas. He is such a fun, he just leaps off the page. His charisma is, I think, what makes him so good at his job. And so, Mary, I'm wondering if you could share with our audience, who Thomas is, why he has come into Stefanie's life, and now how they are working together in Death on the Grand Canal.
Okay, so this is a spoiler for those that haven't read Death in the Aegean. So cover your ears or go get something to drink if you don't want to hear it. But Stefanie met Thomas on Santorini and Crete, and they ended up falling in love. We'll say happily for now, because they're not married. Yeah.
Well, and there's some things that are coming up in book 2 that are kind of making me question that a little bit too. But anyway,
right. Yeah, happily for now. And Thomas works for Interpol. He works for the artifact retrieval team. He is the head investigator for the artifact retrieval team. And in fact, he asked Stefanie to accompany him, since she had done such a good job of helping him out in Death in the Aegean. So that is how she ends up coming there. That is, and they are in love, although, the course of true love never runs smoothly.
Well, and one of the things along that line that I think is really interesting with the interaction of Stefanie and Thomas in book 2 is that I am currently watching, and so it was just made it even more fun. I'm currently watching both Leverage and Chuck right now. And so when the way the book opens, I immediately thought of, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I'd love to get your take on how you came up with the idea for this opening. I immediately thought, oh my God, this is straight out of Leverage or, Ocean's 11 or something like that. And I just love that. So can you kind of, tell us a little bit of, how you came up with the idea? You've talked about this historical piece of jewelry and what kind of, and the fact that Thomas works for Interpol, how their paths, what brings them to Milan and Venice, and kind of tell us about how that gets us to the start of the story.
Oh, okay. First I have to say thank you. I'm so flattered that you would mention me in the same sentence as Leverage.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely.
Well, so the way I thought it would progress naturally, Stefanie on Crete, she had a lot of fun dressing up and kind of playing a part. And so here she wanted to go undercover. Thomas got a tip from one of his informants that the Borgia Peacock was going up for sale on the black market. So they knew if they wanted to get it, they would have to go to get it through devious means. And since it was now becoming not public, but since they knew where it was, they knew if another collector bought it, that it would disappear forever. So they've kind of got to use a little subterfuge to get in there and see if they can con it out of the current owner, Contessa Giuliano Bergamo.
The whole, the world that you created with the players that are involved in this whole black market scheme, as I was reading, it's like, this must have been so much fun to write because you have the Contessa, you have a fashion designer, you have a priest, you have museum directors, there's a lawyer, there are all of these really different people that have been brought together for this dinner that is kind of who is the peacock going to go to? And the cast of characters that you've created is so fun. And I would love to know, how did these people introduce themselves to you? How did these players all come together with, I could see maybe art collectors and museum directors being involved, but there's just so many other people that just happen to be in this house that it just made it so fun.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I have to tell you, the Contessa came to me from one of my critique partners. She had read Death in the Aegean all the way through the end. And I had one person pictured as them going after with the Borgia Peacock in the next book. And she said, oh, it's a woman. And I thought, oh, never occurred to me that you would think that was a woman, but why not? And so that's where the Contessa came from. And of course, I had to make her a little bit colorful, of course, and she likes to get her own way. She's used to getting her own way. Let me see the other characters. Well, this is Venice, and of course, St. Mark's Basilica is huge. It's a huge part of life there, and so that's where the priest comes in, and she is a religious woman to an extent, so she does rely on the priest. But now the museum directors, excuse me, allergies are really getting to me right now.
I hear you.
So there's two museum directors, one from Bellinzona in Switzerland, just over the border, as the police officer says, the best part of Switzerland, which I have to say, I put it there because my husband's family came from Bellinzona.
With its 3 World Heritage sites.
Yes, the 3 castles. Yes. It's quite a pretty
I love
town.
that was like a running joke through the whole, where he was just like, our 3 World Heritage sites. It's like, I know people like that.
Yes.
If I can interrupt you here real quick, then just for a little geography lesson then.
Yes.
So then, because I'll admit when, I didn't check, I'm thinking, okay, this is set in Italy and this guy's talking about being in working for a museum in Switzerland. I'm thinking, okay, I know enough European geography to know their neighbors, but are those 2 communities, are they close to each other kind of geographically?
No.
Okay,
Venice is in,
okay.
northern-ish Italy, but what ties them together is the Sforza Visconti connection.
Okay.
So the Sforzas and Visconti, they ruled, they were like the Dukes of Milan, but they owned, hundreds of years ago, they owned that part of Switzerland. Ticino is the Italian section. They owned it. They built several of those castles. So that was the connection there. The other museum director is from Milan, the Sforza Castle, which is now a museum, and it houses lots of things. So that was his connection. He's in Milan. And then, of course, there is Europe's most famous, most notorious jewel fence, Enrico Ungaretti. And they're all there because the Contessa has let it be known she wants to sell the Borgia Peacock. So it's not actually a dinner. Everybody thinks they're going there to bid by themselves. And lo and behold, nobody's there with a private audience with the Contessa.
So then the next thing that happens, it turns, first the book opens, we've got a con going on. And then it turns out you've given us whether you want to call it closed circle or locked room, you've given us a locked room mystery. Because I was thinking about that. It's like you have supposedly all the suspects right there in that one home.
I think it's a closed circle. Not quite a locked room, but closed circle.
So how was that? Did you know going in that's kind of, what, I want to write a mystery like this, or did that just kind of happen as you went?
That happened as I went, as I plotted it out. It's like, okay, so where's this going to happen? Where's that going to happen? And it just worked out that way. I did not set out to write a closed circle. Well, I think maybe that comes from just, I don't know, all those mysteries I've read, all that Agatha Christie and, where, there's, a small group of people that could have done it reasonably, as, if you discount, the stranger coming in off the street, which I think in mystery books, you can't pull that in. It just doesn't work. It's kind of like cheating the reader.
How I think it's presented to the reader. And one thing, as I was going through, I was like, I want to know and this is more about your writing process. Mm-hmm. How did you keep everyone's location, alibi, movements together as you were writing these? Because, there's, a scene where everybody is just like saying, this is where I was, this is where I was, this is where I was. And then like they keep to those stories and you're like, how...
A big chart, a big flip chart that I have on an easel in the room upstairs. Mm-hmm. And it's like during the crime. And then I list everybody and exactly where they are. And during, I don't know, I'm trying to think what other thing, during the other crime, where were they? So.
All right, because I was like,
I have to use a
chart. So good. So there was a visual, because I was like, I was flabbergasted. It's like, wow, everybody is just like knows where they are, and it was so tightly woven together that I was curious, like, okay, like what's the thought process behind this? Because that's one reason why I tend to like lean away from locked rooms, because like knowing or at least like knowing where everybody is at the exact moment, it's like that's really hard for me to keep in check with how I write books.
Yes, and I did not do that with Death in the G, and I didn't really feel like I needed it. But as this plot took shape, I realized like, oh, I need to know where everybody is. So I did my chart. Yeah.
And it was like with minutes too. Like, it was so precise. It was fabulous.
And the way you drew us the picture when, again, this is early enough in the story, so I don't think it's giving anything critical away. When Stefanie arrives at the Contessa's house there, or at her palazzo, the way you describe it to us with so much detail as she comes off the gondola and goes into the courtyard. Did you draw this particular home out, or did you have a picture? Or what did you use? Because I mean, I'm thinking it's like, okay, you know this place better than I know my own house.
I actually did both. I made a mood board with photos from the exterior and the interiors of a lot of Venetian palazzos. And let me tell you, that was fun. Those are gorgeous places. But then I also drew a floor plan. So I knew, okay, she's going here, I have to know what she can see or where she's going next. So I did both. I hand drew it, but first I just printed out, gorgeous pictures of interiors, and, Sotheby's Realty sells high-end properties, and they have gorgeous photos. So that's probably where most of my photos came from, to help me figure out what it was going to look like. But yeah, I also, I've always liked floor plans, and I got to figure out. So yeah, I drew some.
I like to use a floor plan too when I am, especially a lot of the stuff that I do for my Court of Mystery series that takes place in castles. So it's like the East Wing, the West Wing, like all of these like different areas, and like I have to visually see it, because I will spend the whole book referring to the West Wing only to be like, Sarah, that was supposed to be the South. Like, what the heck were you doing?
Yeah, with the castle, you need that. You need
well, and I think it also brings up a good point, and I'd love to get your take on this, Mary. And also, I want to say welcome to Joan. Joan joined us a little bit late, so great to have you, Joan. One of the things that you've been talking about and telling us here is the fact that you obviously in writing this book had to spend a ton of time not writing, whether it's the research that, from the historical, like with the fire in 1906 to doing all of this architectural research and things like that. How much time would you say is do you spend
percentages?
Yeah. I mean, or is there any way you can kind of quantify that? Because, as we get some folks who are writers and some who aren't, or some who are thinking about it. So I think that's just a really I'd love to know. I'll be honest with I don't do a ton of research because there's not a lot of stuff to research about a fake small town in Indiana. So, but obviously it's different for you.
Well, yeah, because I have that historical connection to the artifact, I've got to do it. But I would say probably half of my time, like if it takes me a year to write a book, probably 6 months is on research. And it's not like a straight 6 months. It's like, okay, I'll start out doing some research. Like with the peacock, I love that figure, but I looked up a lot of the different Renaissance pendants, and they had all kinds of creatures on there. They have mermen and horses and mermaids and a lot of animals and mythical things. So that was a lot of fun, but I did that at first, and then start, I'll get a little bit of the plot going, and then I'll go back and have to research something. So I would say it's probably 50-50, maybe 6 months total research. And of course, I think you can tell by that that is a rabbit hole I love diving down. And maybe I should spend a little less time researching. I probably could,
but think until it works.
You don't know, right? Yeah. You don't know.
Yeah, I think it totally works. And if you can believe it, we're already at halfway through our show. So I want to do a quick pause and talk a little bit about our fabulous giveaway that we have. Hopefully the what we have been chatting about with Death on the Grand Canal has piqued everyone's interests. And in order to enter for a chance to win a signed copy of Death on the Grand Canal, what I would love it if our viewers could do is type in the word. Mary, would you like to let them know what the magic word is?
Peacock.
peacock
Nice.
into the YouTube chat. Make sure you guys are logged into either your Gmail, your Google, your YouTube account so that you're able to participate. And we will draw the winner at the end of the show. I do, while people are entering the giveaway, Mary, I would love to know, was there something else that the peacock was going to be until it was a peacock? Or was it did you just see it as like, it's going to be a peacock?
Actually, yes. And that was one of the challenges in writing this, is when I first plotted it out, I was going to have the Borgia bracelet because I liked the rhythm of that.
I like that.
Like the alliteration. So, but I knew that readers would want to look up and see bracelets from like the 1490s. Now, this, at the time, I could not find portraits from the 1490s that would show either wrists or bracelets. I couldn't find any pieces in the museum collections. I looked and looked, and it's like, I know they're there. I know they wore them. I've read Isabel D'Este's letters, and she talked about at a wedding, her husband piled, the table with jewels and bracelets that the guests would just take. So I know they had them. I'm thinking that there's not a lot in museums because they were easy to melt down and sell, melt down for the gold, because there was a lot of wars in, Renaissance times, certainly with Italy. Everybody, needed to raise an army or raise money for something. And so I'm thinking that while some of the bigger pieces were treasured and kept, I think a lot of the bracelets got melted down.
Oh, interesting.
And the jewels reused. But that's not to say that I couldn't go on somewhere now and find them on either portraits from the time period or museums, but I did not at the time. And to be honest, I have not. I've seen some later pictures with bracelets over, like in the 1500s or 1600s. They have portraits with the women wearing bracelets over their cuffs. And it's like, oh, well, too bad. But anyway, so that was one of my challenges as I wrote it. It's like, well, crap, people are going to want to look up this type of jewelry, not, the specific thing. But if they couldn't find them, I didn't want to go there. So it's the Borgia peacock. It was the pendant.
Wow. So I can see like that bit of research really paid off for you. So I think that, your 6 months of research, don't bat an eye at it.
Oh yeah.
I think don't fix if it's not broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that kind of brings up another question, and you address this in the story, and that's of fake jewelry, and so, because one of the questions that Stefanie and Thomas have to look into is, okay, they want to try to get this, this piece of historical jewelry back to its rightful owner, which is kind of the genesis of the story, to me at least.
Yes.
But you talk about the fact that, well, there is this huge thriving, fake jewelry industry. So could you talk a little bit about how that came about, instead of just saying, okay, this is a really old piece of jewelry, this person has it, we want to get it into the right hands. You add that additional layer of intrigue to the story, saying, well, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. How are we going to figure that out?
Well, that did come from research. And when I was researching these pendants, I found that I believe his first name is Reinhold Vasters. He was an artisan, a jewelry maker in the late 1800s. And he apparently designed hundreds of Renaissance looking items and sold them as true Renaissance pieces, and museums bought them and collectors bought them. And it wasn't until, I believe it was the 1950s or 1960s, that his papers were found in someone's attic and turned into a museum, that all these designs of pieces that were in museums, but were his design, drawings for pieces that he made. So, and so they've gone back and they've used, is it chrome? I cannot remember the term, chroma spectry, something like that. Anyway, they can analyze the color, the enameled paint on these to see if they were made in the 1800s or if they were made in the 14 or 1500s, 1600s. So they know there's a lot of pieces that are pastiches. Parts of them are the original pendants, but then they've got a lot of additions around them, either maybe a circle around them or something, some sort of embellishment that was from the 1800s, and they were sold as genuine Renaissance pieces. So it's it was much bigger, I think, than anyone realized back in the 1890s.
So the guy that you mentioned, he was a real dude then. The
Masters. Yes, Masters is real. You can look him up, and his pieces are just fantastic. They're beautiful.
Well, and it's kind of ironic because now, and there was a scene that kind of points this out, that's like, even though they're fakes, they're still like valuable because, they're not from the Renaissance, but they are from the 1800s, from this guy that like pulled off this elaborate scam. And
that's true. Yes, they have their own value.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, well, so it's like, it could be worth a lot or a lot, which I thought that was such like a fun, and also, you bring the reader through a little lesson of like how to authenticate a piece from the Renaissance, and like, so you're teaching the reader as you're going through, which I always find, like, if I can learn something that I can like bring up in conversation with somebody, I always feel like, ooh, I just learned this in a book. And
that kind of goes full circle back to one of my hobbies is collecting vintage jewelry. Now, of course, I have nothing really valuable, but I love vintage jewelry from the 1900s, anytime in the 1900s. And so that's been a hobby that I've had for about 20 years. And it was really nice to be able to use some of the research that I had done in the book, even though in the book it's much, much older jewelry. And so that was a lot of fun for me. And I know that both of you have both recently had a new release. And I wanted to ask, did you use hobbies or interests in your books? Because I know, Sarah, you've got Tag Me for Murder, and JC, you've got Concert Hall Hit. Do either of those have hobbies that you drew on in your books?
They certainly do. Yeah. I spend, and for me, it's just like I live and breathe social media for, I feel like, a majority of my day. Whether it's now having to like research and like, test things out to be like, is this how like Reddit operates, or is this how TikTok is operating? Is this how, Instagram operates? But I love all things social media. I love it, how it connects us. But I also, for my, there's this kind of, I guess, not dream. It's just like a projection of like, oh man, like maybe if I had known that there were these opportunities when I was in college, that you could go into this digital marketing sphere and like, become somebody. I was like, oh, that's
load.
I would have loved to have pursued that as like a career in itself. But I feel like I was like 2 or 3 years behind the whole like, oh, social media is like how people are going to market things. So I just channel all of my angst into creating somebody that I could have been.
Which is good.
But, Sarah, for what it's worth, and I feel so bad for all these people who are being laid off. In the news, people are constantly losing their jobs these days in the social media and the tech sector. So, maybe it's kind of good that you didn't go that way. Who knows?
Yeah, that is also. And I feel like I've got a pretty good thing going right now, so I can't complain too much. But it definitely, like, my love and my interest in it was like definitely like fueled Coco in her creation.
Yeah. And, as for me, I've loved music. I always have. I went to my first concert when I was, 14, and it's always just been a huge part of my life. And, so for the Darcy Gone Mysteries, putting her in a record store just was kind of a no-brainer for me. And it's for me, it's fun because name dropping, either acts that I know or artists I want to see or, luminaries like, it just, with, it breaks my heart. We all lost Tina Turner yesterday. It made me think, my God, I haven't put Tina Turner in any of my books yet. So I'm going to put her in, the one I'm writing now. So, it's fun. It's it's a passion. And Mary, your interest in history and artifacts, your passion for it really comes across on the page because your stories just draw just draw me in, and I know I'm getting excited because I can't run a sentence together right now. So, live TV here, folks. But one of the things to Sarah's point is just that, the way you draw the pictures for us, whether it's Venice as in total, or talking about the canals, or even talking about earlier in the story, the one dress shop that Stefanie and Thomas visit. The pictures you draw for us are so detailed, and we learn so much so easily. It's just, I just want to tip my hat to you because like Sarah said, with like the history about the jewelry and what's a fake and what's not a fake, it's like I'm reading this and it's like it never once felt like a lesson, but yet like Sarah said, in my head it's like, oh, this is really cool. I had no idea. So I tip my hat to you.
Thank you.
Can you, Mary, talk a little bit about the craft of, like, how did you sit down and write this book? Or how did you learn to write this way? Is it something that has just always been second nature, or is it, workshops that you've done, things that maybe for our aspiring authors, people who are looking to sit down and write their first book, what advice can you give them about crafting scenes in this manner?
Well, of course, you absorb, by being a reader, you absorb a lot. You absorb the way the plot works and character interaction and that sort of thing. But I have to say that one of the best things I did was to join my local, it was an RWA group. We've since disaffiliated, but we're still together. And I joined a critique group. We had 4 women. We met once a week. We shared a chapter. And each one of us looked at something different, or I guess noticed something different. Somebody was the grammar police, and somebody else always wanted that emotional reaction. And somebody said, oh, your blocking is not off. So being in a critique group for several years really, really taught me what to look for, what my weaknesses were, and what I had to, work with. So I would highly recommend any aspiring writers find a writers group near you. You can join them online if you don't have any in your town or close by, and you can always meet by Zoom or Skype, that sort of thing. You don't have to meet physically, because we always met by Skype at the time, back in the day. We ended during the pandemic, but some of them still critique. But also I've gone to a lot of conventions that offer craft workshops, like Thriller Fest. I've gone to Thriller Fest a number of times, and I just go fill every hour with a craft workshop that I can. I've learned a lot there. I'm trying to think of other, Killer Nashville, they had some good craft workshops. So doing that is really good for you. This year I'm going to Sleuth Fest for the first time, but I've heard very good things about their workshops and stuff. So anytime you have the opportunity to take a class or some sort of workshop, I would recommend signing up for it. It's if you're serious about getting published, it's money well spent. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to get your work critiqued. Take it as constructive criticism.
Yeah, I will see you at Sleuth Fest. That'll be so much fun.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, our time is running short, Mary. But kind of one of the things that I would like to ask a little bit also about, if you don't mind sharing, is you talked about living in Europe for a while. Can you give us a little more detail about that? And also then maybe a little hint about where Stefanie, our intrepid traveler, will be traveling to next.
Okay. Well, I've been a world traveler all my life. I'm an Army brat, and I spent most of my childhood, up until the time I was 16, most of my life was spent on various Army bases in Germany. So, and then I joined the Air Force out of high school because I wanted to go to England. We never got to England. And when I got married to my husband, who is a retired Air Force. I did not stay in after I got pregnant with my second daughter. It's like, okay, enough is enough. But my first overseas assignment in the Air Force was Ramstein Air Force Base. So we were in Germany 4 years, came back to the States for a year. Then we lived in the Netherlands for 4 years. Then we went to Spain for 1 year. And finally, last 4 years before my husband retired, we were in England.
Okay, so you got there.
Yes, I finally got there. And then, of course, after he retired, we really missed that. Oh, we just missed that traveling life that we were so used to other cultures and experiencing that we regularly take trips to foreign countries now. And we've been to, well, I'll tell you, our latest one was a year ago in January. We went to Egypt and Jordan, and that was a trip of a lifetime. Oh my gosh. So I hope to have a story set there sometime in the future. Next year, we plan to go to Portugal. So now, as for Stefanie, she is going to end up in book 3 on Bermuda, a rock in the middle of the Atlantic.
Nice.
Something a little different.
Yeah. A little different. And
and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I love Bermuda, and I can't wait to see what happens there because
I will add that it involves archaeology again.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so real quick, how many languages can you speak? You spent all this time all over Europe. I got to know.
I can only speak one. I can understand a lot of German, speak a little bit of German, and I can say hello, please, and thank you in 4 or 5.
Okay.
I know. That's my embarrassment. I should.
No, that's
harder.
Hey, that's better than me.
I've given Stefanie that talent and hard work that I did not put in myself.
Well, I'm a Hoosier, so we're happy when we can handle the English language reasonably well. So beyond that, that's all I got. What about you, Sarah? More than one language?
I used to know Spanish pretty well, but that's gone. And I used to know Greek, but that is also gone.
Oh, that's awesome.
I did a term in Greece and Egypt when I was in college. So I opted to learn Greek and not Arabic.
Sounds like maybe you like archaeology also.
That's why I was like devoured this book. I absolutely I love it. So yes, I do. And Egypt, oh my God, just phenomenal. And that's one of my, I think outside and the fact that you had a mystery involved in this, it was just everything because I love reading about just like thrillers and with like the historical fiction thriller suspense stuff that goes on. And so then add in a mystery and I'm like, oh my God, this is everything. So
yeah, I mean, I think your stories, Mary, they remind me a little bit of some of the, the classic Agatha Christie's in that whether it's, kind of whether you like them or not, the Kenneth Branagh new Agatha Christie films are wonderful because they bring those stories to a new audience. But you have this glamour and these for a lot of us here in the States, these far-flung locations, and on top of that, you got this wonderful mystery set in among all this stuff. So it's just I'm with Sarah. It's so much fun.
Armchair travel.
Yeah.
So we have to know what books you are reading that are kind of fueling your love of mystery or just reading in general. What are you reading? What any TV shows that you can recommend, podcasts, what have you? We'd love to know.
Well, what I'm reading right now is there's a couple. I always read a couple at one time. So I've got Sharon Michael loves At First Sight,
Okay.
which is a mystery, and I suspect there's going to be a lot of romance in it, which I like. And James Lake Twall's Black Label, so, which starts out with quite the beginning. So that's what I'm reading right now. As for watching, I'll tell you what, I'm anxiously waiting for season 13 of Death in Paradise. That plays on BritBox, and so they're just filming it now. They actually filmed that down in Guadeloupe, so that's kind of fun. Yeah. But I also like Ghosts, which of course that's not really mystery, but I love it. I just absolutely love the show, love the humor, and so Help Me Todd. And of course that always has a crime that has to be solved and a mystery. I'm enjoying that one, and 911 Lone Star with Rob Lowe. So
that's like a mix stuff going on.
Yes.
What's that?
That you've got a good like mix of stuff that I like the variety that you have.
Yeah, my taste is very eclectic. It doesn't stick to one genre at all.
And you can't go wrong with Rob Lowe. Well, first off, before I get into what I'm reading, what I'm watching, I do want to take a moment to remind folks who are watching us live, if you haven't done so yet, Mary has been so kind to offer an autographed copy of Death on the Grand Canal to a lucky winner. You need to put in the magic word, and the magic word again, Mary, is? Peacock. So if you haven't done so yet, we still got a few minutes before Sarah's going to draw that. So kind of make sure you get that in there. But yeah, as far as what I'm reading, I'm really excited. This is something brand new. It's the Rhythm of Time. It's a young adult novel, but it's by Questlove and mystery author S.A. Cosby. So yeah, I just thought this would be really cool. And so I'm looking forward. I've just started it. I started it and then I had to put it aside because I'm reading your book now, Mary, even though obviously very slowly. But so that's kind of what the net is next for me. Is
that a time travel?
I think it is, but I don't know. I haven't gotten far enough yet. So yeah, I can't wait to find out. As far as what I'm, either what I'm watching, I'm just trying to think if there's anything new. I think our last episode, Sarah, I mentioned I'm watching both Fringe and Chuck, and having so much fun still watching both of those. And I do want to echo what Mary said. I just finished season 11 of Death in Paradise, and that is fabulous. And just found out that season 8 or 9, anyway, the new season of the Brokenwood Mysteries just dropped on Acorn. So if you're not familiar with that, that is a series set in New Zealand, and it's wonderful. It's funny. The shows, there's usually 6 episodes a season, and they're an hour and a half long, so you get your money's worth. So if you haven't checked out the Brokenwood Mysteries, you got to check out that. So Sarah, how about you?
So the book that I am reading right now, I am listening to it on audiobook. It's The President's Daughter, which is the Bill Clinton and James Patterson collaboration. I read the first book. I can't remember how long ago, but I really, really enjoyed it. And so I just started, I'm probably about in like a couple chapters into this. And I love with the audiobook performance, every chapter is told from a different person's perspective. So it has a different actor. And so it's fun to have like the different voices playing. I'm still very much on my manga binge. I actually got this new subscription to, I think it's called Cosmicology. It's something on Amazon that it's like exclusively to comic books.
Comixology.
There we go. I can all of these syllables together. I'm like, who knows? But the series that I'm reading now, it's called LDK, and I have no idea what those letters are supposed to stand for. But again, it's a really fun, cute series. It's another one of the slice of life romance mangas. As for what I am watching, I did The Unthinkable last week, and I canceled Hulu. I canceled Disney Plus. I canceled HBO Max. What else? We canceled like a ton of our streaming services because they were all jacking up the price. And it's like, you know what? We're not using these enough to warrant all of it. So word to BritBox, Acorn, and I think Prime is all that we're using. And because of that, and Apple TV, because I have to finish the season 3 of Ted Lasso and watch the Prehistoric Planet, which I think is actually airing this week, but we want to binge it all at once. So no spoilers, please. We're like, oh, spoiler alert, all the dinosaurs died. But we
no, oh, you ruined it, Sarah.
Yeah. So that's on our to watch list. And the podcast that I'm listening to, if anybody is looking for a true crime podcast binge, the 5th season of Counterclock just dropped. And this one is investigating the murder of Bruce Kuchera in New Orleans. And I think it's East New Orleans, that he was gunned down while he was looking at an investment property. And I'm already like 9 episodes in. I started yesterday, and it is such good storytelling. So again, if folks need a podcast or something to listen to during their commute, definitely recommend it. It's a good show.
That reminds me that I am really, really eager to see the next season of Only Murders in the Building.
Yes. Yes.
Dying for it to come on.
I'm gonna have to restart my Hulu subscription once it comes so that I can watch it, because it's getting so tricky these days, because it's like everything is diversified again. So it's like cable all over, where it's like, oh, you got to buy like this huge package to get everything. But we've been doing pretty well with the slimmed down version, especially since I got the Discovery Plus feature on Prime, and that's Unusual Suspects, which is another great true crime TV show. Absolutely love it. And yeah, there's so many. Absolutely, I'm a big true crime buff.
And I gotta ask Mary, I know our time is almost up. You're from Kansas City. That's home base right now. We got to talk barbecue.
Oh.
I've always been told, and I've only been to Kansas City twice. And
next
that is
time you come visit us.
Yes, I need to. That Arthur Bryant's is the best barbecue. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh gosh.
No, tell me.
I like Jack Stack. I'm partial to Jack Stack, but there is, an entire city out there that will argue with me. But yes, it's fantastic. I like burn ends. Oh, give me burn ends.
Okay. That's one of the great things about, travel, is whether we go to Italy, Greece, Kansas City, Missouri, there's so much to find on it. It's a great big world, and there's so much to see and taste.
And we are going to have a lucky viewer that has the opportunity to visit Venice from their armchair.
It's like, wait a minute, I'm not paying for it.
Visit a fictionalized Venice, and enjoy the amazing mystery that you have crafted, Mary. So without further ado, our winner for this evening is David Plank. Congratulations, David.
Hey.
So David, go ahead and email me at giveaways@thebookishhour.com, your mailing address, and I will get that on over to Mary. Congratulations. And thank you so much, everybody who joined us here for our live show. We always appreciate you being here to cheer us on, to ask us questions, to lend your support to all the wonderful authors that we have here on the Bookish Hour. And Mary, thank you for being here this evening as we help celebrate the release of your fabulous mystery, Death on the Grand Canal. Thank you so much for having me. Everybody, thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate you being here, and hope that when Stefanie lands in Bermuda, that she will come back and share a little bit about her next adventure, because I know that I'm super excited about it and can't wait to see what comes up.
Thank you.
You know, and real quick, Mary, before you get out of here, for folks who are new to you, where can they find you, whether live and in person or on the internet?
Okay. Well, I'll be at BoucherCon in live in August, but on the internet, I'm on Twitter at MAMonnin1, and I follow all kinds of topics there. I'm on Instagram at m.a.monnin, and I'm on Facebook at MAMonnin.
Okay, awesome.
And I tend to do Travel Tuesdays where I show you some of my travel photos. If you
that is a fun thing to have, especially on Instagram with all the beautiful pictures. Mary, thank you again for being here this evening. We greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us. For our viewers, again, joined us live, thank you. We will be back for another episode of the Bookish Hour on June 8th. Our guest is going to be Lori Lewis-Ham. We're going to be talking about her latest mystery and a podcast that she is also hosting. So we'll have a fun new perspective to talk about on the podcast front. So I hope you guys are able to join us. And until then, have a happy Memorial Day weekend and stay bookish, everybody. Have a good weekend. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Thank you.